and I'll get started once I see that our participants have joined.
Okay.
We'll give them a few more seconds. All right, I see that we have our attendees joining, so I will go ahead and get started. All right, welcome in everybody to another Korski webinar, actually the last webinar of 2020. We are going to end this year with a bang because we have an awesome presentation for you guys. We're going to be talking about integration and specifically integration in career education. So you might have heard of integration before. At its core, it's really the connection between two different systems that allows data to transfer between each other automatically. And there's a lot of nuances that go into that and a lot to unpack there. So we're really fortunate to be joined by a person who is perfect to be talking about integration. His name is Mark Barone. He's a co-founder of Korski and also the VP of Integrations. So we're really happy to have Mark with us here today. And at the end of our presentation, we'll all be experts on integration, just like Mark. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Hi, Alex. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm really excited to have Mark get started. We'll really quickly go through a few housekeeping items and then we'll turn it over to him so we can get the presentation rolling. Number one, first housekeeping item is that this webinar is recorded. So everyone who has signed up will get a recording of the webinar emailed to them later this week. The second thing is that we have time at the end for a Q&A session. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, definitely submit those using the Q&A function on your Zoom toolbar, and we'll get to as many as we have time for at the end. And if we run out of time, we'll answer them via email. So please submit your questions. We want to make sure that we get to all those and clarify anything that you want clarified. Okay, this webinar is brought to you by Korski. So we're going to do a quick introduction of Korski. Who's Korski? We're a teaching and training platform that's built specifically for career education institutions. We really focus on helping schools improve their compliance, boost their retention, and dramatically increase their efficiency. We offer time-based attendance for touch-free check-ins, digital evaluations, record cards, assessments, and social learning. And what makes Korski really powerful is that it's built for any learning environment, whether that's fully on ground and in person, whether it's fully online or a blended approach or hybrid approach. We cover all of it and we help schools achieve their goals no matter what the learning environment is. So that's Korski in a nutshell. We're going to go ahead and get started on our integration presentation. So it's my pleasure to welcome in Mark and have him take it from here.
All right. Thank you, Alex. So the first thing we're going to do is just go through a couple poll questions here, and it's just to really get a pulse for the different type of integrations that you might have between your CRMs, your student information systems, your LMS systems. So once we're done with those quick poll questions, we'll probably spend about a minute doing those, about 10 seconds each. And once we get through the poll questions, we'll go through integration itself, like the value of integration, the different types of integrations, and give you a couple of examples of some real life scenarios on how integrations can impact your organization and help with the efficiency side, as well as some of the compliance regulations. And then we're going to go through an example of how Korski manages integration, and we'll open it up for Q&A. All right, so let's get started. If we can open up the polls, and the first question is, has your organization eliminated manual data entry into your SMS, LMS, CRMs, SISs? If the answer is no to any of those, you can just say not yet. You might have an integration with one of them, maybe a couple of them, but if you haven't streamlined all of the data transfer between all the systems you use, then you can answer not yet. Next one, does your organization have a system that auto-populates data into your SIS, LMS, and CRM without human intervention? How frequently are your technology systems updated with student records? Is this hourly, daily, weekly? Not at all. Do you feel like your technology can allow your school to double its student count in 6 months? And I think this is a very important one. As I meet with organizations and schools, that increasing and scaling is important. And the last one, I believe this is the last one. It's, do you believe that the tech you have in place today is innovative enough to be your technology you use 10 years from now?
All right, so we're going to give our attendees a few more seconds.
All right.
And then Mark, I'll actually read out the poll results for you if that works.
Yes.
Okay, 5 more seconds for our attendees. All right, thanks everybody for voting. We're going to end the polls right here. Okay, the first question was, has your organization eliminated manual data entry into your SMS, LMS, and CRM? We have 50% say not yet and 50% say yes. Do you have any comments there, Mark?
No, not at all. That's expected.
All right. Number 2, does your organization have a system that auto-populates data into your SIS, LMS, and CRM without human intervention? We have 25% yes and 75% no, or not yet. The third question, how frequently are your technology systems updated with student records? We have 0% hourly, we have 25% daily, and 75% weekly, 0% other.
Okay.
Number 4, do you feel like your technology can allow your school to double its student count in 6 months? We actually have 100% no, 0% yes.
Got it.
And then number 5, do you believe that the tech you have in place today is innovative enough to be the technology you use 10 years from now? We have 25% yes and 75% no.
Great. And those are pretty common responses based on my experience in this sector. So thank you for that. And thank you for your responses. All right. Now, what is integration? And I think it's very important that we kind of button up what the different types of integrations we have. But to give you a real life example, if you have a mobile application that aggregates all of your mail solutions that you have, whether it be Outlook, Google, Microsoft, if it pulls it all into one central application for you to see everything, then that's a pretty good example of an integration. An example of integration in the career sector, though, is connecting data between 2 separate point solutions that you use without human intervention. So an example could be your CRM. When a student actually completes their enrollment process and completes their enrollment package, that student is changed from a lead to a future start, and that triggers a lot of things downstream for your enrollment folks to start getting that student prepped for class, getting their schedules in line. So that is an example of an integrated system where your CRM is actually telling your student information system that this student is now a student and they're ready to be onboarded. That is an example of an integration, but it's important to have that type of efficiency and process throughout the entire student journey. So I see a lot of organizations streamline the integration between the CRM and the SIS, but a lot of the integrations stop there. But you can imagine that if you had integrated point solutions for the entire student journey, for the student once they are a student and they're in class, and there's certain academic data points that might be important to you and your student and your staff, it'd be important for that to also communicate it back to your SIS system. And then as they go on into externships and placements, having point solutions that are communicating to each other throughout the entire student journey can help streamline that efficiency long-term. So why does it matter? Integration is the secret sauce to achieving maximum efficiency and productivity out of your technology stack. On a micro level, it eliminates the necessity for staff members to manually enter data into a system each time data needs to be shared. On a broader scale, integration systems create a foundation for scalability with high efficient operations and repeatable processes capable of handling the additional and infinite students, courses, and programs. So having these different point solutions and having integrations between them allows your organization to scale and bring on more students. So the value of integration, and I can't speak to this enough, one of the main points are efficiency, right? So, and you get efficiency by decreasing the manual labor, and the manual labor stems from the manual data entries. So if you have two systems that do not talk to each other, and you require instructors or staff to enter records for students into a system, that's a lot of manual labor, right? And you want to be able to instantly send data between two systems. For instance, right now, if we're talking about manual labor, you could have instructors documenting attendance, giving that to an administrator, and that administrator entering it into the SIS, or you could have an instructor entering that data directly into the SIS portal itself. But if you had that attendance being collected automatically and sent to your SIS, you have efficiency in the classroom, and that gives your instructors more time to teach. Another big point is another big value of integration is the accuracy. So significantly decreasing human error. If you have an integrated system where systems are passing data to and from each system and there's no human intervention, that's and an administrator entering data, you decrease the opportunity for human error. And you eliminate the loss of data too, depending on how certain information is collected. If it's documented on paper or in a spreadsheet, and somebody's responsible for taking that information in bulk and sending it somewhere else, there's potential data loss there. And at the end of the day, if you have manual data entry and you have data loss, that introduces vulnerabilities into your organization. And I think as all businesses, they like to reduce the vulnerability that they have for findings, especially during audits. You want to be as compliant as possible. So by having integrated systems that automatically transfer data to and from, you remove that human component and that vulnerability aspect. So another big point there, once you've gotten efficiencies from your organization, once you eliminate some of the vulnerabilities and you have more data accuracy, the scalability value comes into play. So now you have a repeatable process to ensure that you're in compliance. It allows you to meet your expansion needs. A lot of organizations are in acquisition mode and they're trying to purchase schools, they're trying to expand their own schools, expand cohorts. And if you have scalable, repeatable processes, and there's no limit to the data, the amount of data that the technology can manage, because if I'm sending 100 touch points or attendance for 100 students from one system to the other automatically, it doesn't matter if it's 100 students or 1,000 students or 5,000 students. If you have scalable processes, the technology can manage that. And if the integration's in place, then you can prove to your creditors that you can manage more students, more cohorts, more campuses. So in order to do that, I think it's important to understand the different types of integrations available. And when I speak with organizations, when they think of integration, the first thing that comes to mind is an API integration. And basically what that stands for is an application programming interface. And that's just one system's way of saying, I have a very structured process for sending and receiving data, whether that be student data, faculty data, learning data, any of that information that is stored in one system and needs to get to another. They basically have a process and a strict format for how they accept and send data. And when you have that, the other system can easily plug into that second system and start to communicate and send data to and from. So it supports real automation. So and automation allows you to not send data just one time, but update that data if it needs to be updated. And I think that's very important. And that's one level of value that the API integration brings. Is it doesn't just send the original data for today. If any updates are made, downstream the next day, a week from now, it's important that that original data get updated, but you only have to update it from one system. You don't have to update both. And the API integration allows for updated information that it is sharing between the two systems. Now, the second type of integration is SFTP. All right, so this stands for Secure File Transfer Protocol. And this is data that's passed over secure third-party server that works as a middleware connecting both systems. So as an example here, you have the kind of blue image, the blue server stack, and you have the green one. Imagine those being your LMS and your student information system. If they can't directly communicate to each other via APIs, they typically send data to this purple stack here, where that's where they actually exchange data. So the blue one will send data to the purple stack, and then the green one will request that data and pull it into the SIS. That is one way for systems to communicate with each other. But it does have its limitations, and it's typically less frequent. And then the reason for that is because it does not allow for updates. So if student records were sent from your LMS to your SIS, once those are sent, if anything changes, you have to update both systems. And that's the manual data entry that is being reintroduced to a system that was supposed to support automation. So this is significantly different from the APIs because this allows at least to automate data and transfer it in bulk. But the reason why it's typically less frequent is because it allows administrators to make updates before data is sent. So they typically say, okay, let's send this once a night or once every day, twice a day at max, to give administrators enough time to correct the data before it gets sent, because once it gets sent, it needs to be updated in both systems. So although this is a viable solution to prevent manual data entry, it is not the ideal solution. APIs are always preferred. Now, kind of the low tech of all integrations, and I don't typically like to even consider this as an integration, but it is a way for two systems to interact with each other. This is the file transfer. So this basically says, if I'm the LMS or I'm the SIS or I'm the point solution, I will send a file that satisfies your import requirements. So this gives the client the ability to import data in bulk and export data in bulk, but it requires a human to import that information versus the SFTP option that can all be automated. And you don't have to have an administrator export data and import data. The SFTP manages that. And on the API side, the SFTP doesn't manage that, and the systems just talk directly to each other. This file transfer requires an administrator or human intervention in order to get data from one system to the other. So this still requires time from administrators, and this is typically done once or twice a day. This is also a less frequent option. So which integration is right for you? It depends on the capabilities of the tech you use. And I think this is very important when you're evaluating tech, or you're looking at different technologies to purchase, or you're considering transitioning systems, or whatever those systems are. It's important to evaluate that company and that organization and see if they have API integrations available, and if they've done them in the past, and if they're willing to interface with any of the other technologies in the ed tech ecosystem. I think once you're going through your purchasing process, it's important to evaluate which systems allow for this, so that you know which integration is right for you. And sometimes you have limitations on certain systems that you're in long contracts with. So SFTP might be your only option. or if that system just does not accept imports from any other system, file transfer might be your only option, or data manual entry might be your only option. So a lot of this depends on the technologies that you use and whether they interact and interface with other technologies in the space. But I want to give you guys an example of how integration can solve real challenges in the organization, of how it can bring operational efficiencies, and it can actually allow you to operate in different spaces that you previously couldn't. So here's an example of Canvas's, the integration that we've created between Canvas, Campus Nexus, and Korski. All right, so this allows Korski to kind of be the conduit between both systems. So there's certain information that is critical to the student journey that lives in the Canvas instance, and there's certain information that is required to live in the student information system. And a lot of times those systems don't talk. And if they did, it was strictly for the kind of asynchronous learning environment. With this new integration that we've built, we're able to satisfy all of the synchronous learning environments, whether those be synchronous virtual or synchronous on ground, or any of the asynchronous activities that happen in Canvas. And a lot of clients are looking to go to more of a blended model where they have students coming on ground or attending virtual synchronous sessions, but they're also getting time awarded for asynchronous activities or assignments completed. This could be discussion boards, this could be assignments, this can be different activities that are done in a third-party tool. And all of that is being collected in Canvas, and there's no way to get it into campus management effectively. So what Korski has built is a translation between those two tools, so that activities that are being recorded and completed and submitted in Canvas are then visualized in Korski, so that the student can see, I've completed these assignments, and this is the amount of time that I was awarded for each assignment. And then that information is also being sent to campus management, updating the LDA and updating that student record in campus management. And this gives a student a comprehensive view of what their journey looks like and how much time has been awarded to date, where typically that information is stored in different systems that they don't have access to. And that requires, a progress report, printout from the administrator so that the student sees where they're at, what time they need to make up, and where. With the integration that we've built with Canvas and campus management, we're able to pull data from both systems and visualize it in Korski, so that students can check in and check out using their Korski application, and that data is visualized in Korski. But any activities that happen in Canvas are also recorded and visualized in Korski, and all that information is sent back to Campus Nexus so that you can run the reports that you need and you can do intervention in a more timely manner. The big value here is we see a lot of this kind of translation happening manually. So instructors and faculty are going into Canvas and figuring out what data is being updated in that system, and then posting that to campus management. And that's typically done on a weekly basis. So administrators, program directors, campus leadership have minimal visibility into the student's journey and how they're progressing on a week-to-week basis. And they kind of have to wait until the end of the week to find that out. With Korski being the conduit between both of those, you can see all that information happening in real time on a daily basis. So this is only possible through API integrations, and that's what I really enjoy working with Canvas and campus management, because they have APIs available for us to tap into, and this allows for frequent updates, frequent data transfers, and this will streamline operations for a lot of campus leadership, so that a lot of those manual processes are now cut out. Next slide. So how Korski tackles integration. No extra IT/development resources required. Korski provides the development resources necessary to set up and run integration and keep it running smoothly. There's typically quick implementations. For instance, campus management integrations, they take a couple weeks to finalize, just so that we can tie in your academic, your academic roles and how you want to manage different scenarios from externship, clinicals, on-ground theory, online. we take those kind of different configurations and we finalize that campus management integration. But these are typically very quick implementations. And another way that we tackle this is, we want to make sure that we're relevant in the future. So Korski is designed to integrate with other systems in the edtech space that you may adopt in the future. And this is low cost. Korski team sets up the integrations at low cost and manages the integration at no cost to the school. So we manage all the integrations that you interact with so that the data that Korski collects is available in those other systems that you use. So just to kind of wrap this up, it's important to let your tech work for you. So, if you want to improve your operations and make things a little bit more streamlined and efficient, and you want to, tackle this blended environment, it's important to make sure that those systems that are used in those blended worlds interact with each other. Integration will be a commonplace in the future. You won't see a lot of tolerance for organizations to have systems that would refuse to integrate with one another. It's just going to be an expectation in the future as we start to digitize a lot of the paper and manual processes that we have. And in institutions that act early will experience a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And I think that's one really big bullet point that I want to speak to as I meet with organizations. They're making sure that they're adopting solutions that interact with each other so that they can remain competitive and give a good student experience. And Korski recognizes that. So we spend time interacting with those systems that you will use now and in the future so that you can provide that experience and get that competitive advantage.
All right. Thank you, Mark, for going through that presentation for us. A lot of valuable information there. I'd like to open up the Q&A session now to our audience. So we've had a few questions come in already, but if you haven't had time or if you haven't submitted one, this is the time to do so. And then we'll throw them over to Mark and he can answer those for us. So while you guys are submitting those, we'll start with the ones that were submitted throughout the presentation. The first one, Mark, it's about SFTP. It says, how do I go about choosing a middleware to connect the systems that I have in place?
That's a good question. Really, what it comes down to is just creating a server, and that server can be hosted by anybody. So you can host that server as the organization. You have your IT department host that server. Maybe the two systems that you're trying to integrate using an SFTP will give server hosting options. So I know Korski does offer we will host your SFTP server if needed. But basically that server is just a way for data to exchange. So as long as somebody's hosting that server, it's available to both systems. It has the proper security measures. Any server will pretty much suffice as long as both systems have access to it.
Gotcha. I have a question that was just submitted. It says, how long does it typically take to get Korski up and running?
How long does it take to get Korski up and running? Well, we've seen a lot of different implementation timelines, right? Depending on the technologies available, the levels of integrations, and the number of campuses obviously play a factor, but we've seen people launch Korski within 5 days. We've seen them take a couple weeks, a couple months, depending on if they wanted a gradual rollout versus a full rollout with all campuses, all students, all programs. So it really depends on the academic needs. Where usually what I see organizations do, they'll target a couple of their problematic programs or courses that have a lot of attendance issues, and they'll focus on getting us integrated there first. And those are usually your more complicated use cases, so that anything that is solved in that use case solves any other program or use case throughout the organization. So it just depends on how quickly the client wants to move, and of course he can support that.
Gotcha. All right, the next question that we have here is, how do registrars or other administrators, how do their roles transform if data entry is automated?
Oh, that's a good question. So we've actually seen this a lot, obviously, as we've implemented Korski. And what these registrars do now is they now spend more time on higher level tasks. So intervention, auditing, now that they have data to accessible at their hand, they can see kind of commonalities, identify problematic areas in the organization, and they're actually able to kind of help on the intervention side so that they can engage with students that need help or instructors that need help. The good thing about Korski is it also introduces visibility into each class, so you can see, you know, if maybe one class teaching the same subject has a little bit more challenges than the other, then they're able to identify those and act. I think that's really how the role has changed after implementing Korski. And now these registrars are spending time on intervention and analysis versus data entry.
Very cool. All right, one last call for questions from our audience. Thank you for submitting the ones that you already have. We'll give a few more seconds here. Oh, we have one more question, Mark. It says, what other systems does Korski have integrations with?
Well, Korski has different integration levels. So we have some SFTP integrations with RGM. We also have SFTP integrations with FAME. We're working on Blackboard as well. I have an integration with D2L in the works as we speak, and that'll be very similar to the integration that we have with Canvas. And we're spinning up a lot more of the kind of LTI single sign-on integrations as well. So we have quite a few different systems that we interact with. The level of the integration depends on the system itself. So even though we do have SFTP with FAME, we are working on an API integration with their new Advantage system because that system will allow for it.
Okay. Well, that is the extent of our questions. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. To our audience members, thank you very much for spending part of your day with us. To Mark, thank you so much for going through that integration presentation with us. I feel like we learned a lot, and our audience can take away some valuable information there. One last thing, if you are interested in seeing a custom demo of the Korski platform, please leave your information in the post-webinar survey, or feel free to email me at Alex Weitzel. My name is Alex Weitzel. You can email me at alex@korski.com, and I'll get you connected to the right people. We would love to talk with you and understand your challenges and see how Korski can help you achieve the goals for your institution. But that's it for Korski for 2020 and our last webinar. So thanks again to Mark, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks everybody for attending. Bye.
Bye.